Two. Welcome back to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I've got an absolute rock star, a queen, and we'll dive into that word a little bit later. I've got Tamara Meyer. Now, she's got a resume of achievements, and there's a few things we're going to rip into today. But business coach, top 9 podcasts in Australia under entrepreneurship, WBFF Bikini Pro, keynote speaker. I love this line. I help queens and kings build Queen Stream and scale their business in the online space, plus so many more things that we're going to rip into today. Mindset, achievements, sales, building a team, scaling, breaking through limitations, all the above. Firstly, Tamara, thank you so much for joining me today.
Wow, what an intro, legend. Thank you so much. And I love that you want to touch base on Queen. Like it's all I'm about, building an empire and helping kings and queens, and you yourself are a king itself. So
thank you. And for guys that don't have the video on, you've got a necklace with Queendom on, as I can see.
Yeah, my mum, so bless her socks, she's this beautiful Brazilian lady and her love language is gifts. So she always buys me jewelry, bracelets, and she's always wanting to be invested in. She's my number one fan apart from my partner.
Yeah.
And Queendom is my business, is my mentorship. So it's a nice reminder, I think, every day when, if things are going on in your life and, it's like a nice reminder that, every day is an opportunity for you to step into your empire. So
Beautiful. Look, before we go into your story, what are you working on at the moment?
Oh my goodness, where do I begin? For myself, I'm going to be doing events. So I love speaking. I'm sure you'll soon get to know that. And it's something that it's been such a big passion of mine to be on stage as a little girl. And so going to be doing events around Australia, overseas. I'm building a university, which is like a course that I'm doing. Can't give it too much away just yet.
Sure.
And just working on my Empire Circle membership, because I've kind of built like a really good, solid one-on-one, private clients. And now I'm just building up the group coaching right now, and then the podcast, and then the traveling. Yeah, a lot.
All right, let's get into your story. I actually don't know your story, so a big benefit of this podcast is I get to learn and I get to connect with amazing people. So, if you just give us, I guess, the story of how you've been able to go from, I guess, start to where you are now, where you're changing lives, you're impacting people, you're living a beautiful life, and I'd love to hear how you got there.
Thanks, legend. I always start off with, because a lot of people have no idea where I came from. And the best way I can explain it is I did live a very gypsy life. I, for one, wasn't born in Australia. I was born in Germany. My dad was the typical German father. He had a military background. And my mum is from Brazil. So she's passionate, she's emotional, she's loving. And because of my dad's military life, we always moved around. We're always in different places. Every couple of months, if I could count how often we moved, I reckon I've lived in over 30 houses my whole life. So for me, growing up was quite erratic. There was never any stability or anything like that. So that was pretty much what life was like. And with that as well, my dad had a lot of demons which came with his job, and that was to do with gambling and other things as well. But I bring this up quite a lot only because it's really important to sort of understand people's upbringing and whatnot, and why I do what I do now every single day. I'm so passionate about helping men and women build their dream life, because my life was very, very sad. It was very traumatic as well. And when we were 4, I moved to Australia with my family. And it was quite hard adapting to, I guess, not like the Aussie culture, being brought up in the German culture, as well as being, Brazilian, and my mum not speaking English until she moved to Australia. It was quite, from memory, quite challenging, especially when you'd go to school. You had a weird accent. It wasn't quite German. It wasn't quite Portuguese. It wasn't quite Australian. And, English was my third language. So that was something I remember navigating as a little girl. But I also just had this crazy fire within me, a lot of people used to say. And because there was so much trauma in my upbringing with my mum and dad, my escape was acting and dancing. I was put into dance school when I was 3. I did every single type of dancing you could think of. And my mum tells me that the doctor told her to put me into dancing because I had ADHD behaviors. I couldn't stop moving. And I still to this day think it was just her way of telling I need to
Yeah.
get
I
this
need a
child
break.
to sleep. Yeah, literally. So I loved being on stage. I think it was my escape, and I became really good at showing up when things were hard. And my mum used to always say to me, don't let people know what's going on behind the scenes, don't let people know about our life. And because my father was always in and out of work after he left the military, gambling became really, really significant because he had a money problem. So you can imagine, moving houses all the time was because he couldn't afford rent. He changed jobs all the time because he was always fired. And we went to 6 different schools growing up. So I was constantly having to adapt and change. But for me, my escape was dancing and acting. And then life became a bit of a show. And I became very good at masking everything was fine. And I guess that's why, if we connect the dots to everything now, I thought that dancing and acting was going to be my career. And, I became very good at it. I traveled around the world being a professional dancer and actor, TV shows, musicals, all those things. But I always speak about pinnacle moments in our life, and we have so many of these. And for me, the first time I walked into, it was a Snow White audition, I had this horrible panic attack. And my agent had said to me, just take some time off. And it was kind of my big sign that that was my body telling me that I needed to walk away from an industry that was no longer serving me. And I went through a phase where I was figuring out what it is I wanted to do. And that's when I began the fitness world, became a fitness coach, saw that as my world for so long. And even then it became a part of me for a little bit, but it wasn't all of me. And, I built my career around that. I became a WBFF pro, and it was another pinnacle moment that, again, changed the trajectory of my life, where I was diagnosed with PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress, actually. And then that's why I changed everything when it came to the mindset, my goals, why I was doing certain things. I realized there was still a lot of trauma that I hadn't healed from when I was a little girl. And that also changed how I coached my clients. It wasn't just about the physical goal. It was like, what's going on in your internal world?
Yeah, awesome.
Then, yeah, that led me to realizing I wanted to do life coaching. And now here I am helping women and men build a business in the online space, because I found that what helped me really work on a goal was building a life that I never had. And a lot of the people that came to me when it came to working on their internal world, when they started to really heal, I guess we're always healing though, right, Lewis? But when we started to really heal and get through, the stuff that they were wanting to achieve, their biggest dream was, to create their career that they can walk away from doing something that they weren't passionate about.
Yeah.
And here I am now. What I'm doing is just, I truly now feel this is my purpose and my mission in life. And I feel like I'm always going to be evolving. I feel like that's just how I am. On to the next project. But in a nutshell, that's my story.
It's a beautiful story. And you've said so many little nuggets for me that I really align with and I really agree with as well. I guess to start, leaning into a fair few of them, you mentioned things like inner work. Like you said dad's got some demons he's working through. You're working through your own traumas that are going on.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, I guess, coming from someone, and I'm generalizing right now because not everyone falls into this, but I've come from the fitness industry. I know a lot of people that have come from the fitness industry, and some are still in there. And I know a lot of them because it's a industry where your body it's a very external validation world that you're in, right? Like it's the pinnacle of you get judged for exactly how you look externally. And a lot of that can be covering up things that are happening internally. And I've got another couple of friends you probably know, maybe Nikki Casser, if you know who that name is, and she's in this world as well, and she's quite maybe similar to the work that you do. But I know her story, how she's come through, and there was that external validation was covering up the wounds of the internal stuff that was missing. I'd like to know from someone in your space now, how do you work with people to get them to lean a little bit more to the stuff that's happening internally? Because we can generally, when you've got overachievers like yourself, we can achieve as a bit of a coping mechanism to not do the work. So how has your experience doing that for yourself and also for your clients?
I mean, I think the biggest thing I always express, like the embodiment work is so important. So whenever I go through anything, I know that it's an opportunity for me to support anyone that works with me. And this is such an interesting question, Lewis, because I mean, before the fitness side, I was a dancer. So I was already seeking approval from my father at being the number one and being the best, because him being such a military person, it was all about, wanting him to be proud of me. And he never, acknowledged that he was. It was always like, if I wasn't at the front of the dance class, I was a failure. So I was also seeking quite a lot of stuff back then. So one of the things that I woke up to when I realized I had been diagnosed with CPTSD, it was that what I had to really learn, well, I had to unlearn a lot of stuff, but it was basically getting to the core of who I was and why I was doing certain things. Was it because I actually loved to do it, or was it because I was chasing the attention from people and I was getting, praised for something in the world of fitness, in the world of dancing, when really that little girl really needed to start to be proud of herself and what she was doing. And so I always want people who work with me that they are taught skill set that they can take on, not just in business, but in their lifetime. I truly believe that when you do the internal work, and that looks different for everyone, sometimes it begins with, journaling. And then from there, you move into breath work, and then you move into meditation. And then you start to look at, the inner child work and all that kind of stuff. But my biggest thing when it comes to the internal work, it's constant. And the more we peel the layers of what reveals itself, the more it's an opportunity for us to grow and expand, not just in business, but in every part of life. And I want people who work with me to have the ability to have belief, certainty, and learn how to make decisions. Because I've been in a space too where you start working with coaches and they take away all these abilities because they say this is the only way to do this. And so I find that there's not one way to do business or not one way to heal. It's finding what works for each individual, but also how your own healing can support someone else's healing journey to support their willingness to do the work and commitment too. So, yeah.
Beautiful. If you're okay going into detail with this, healing is it's part of my purpose to heal and improve the consciousness of the world. So if you could lead into healing, how can someone, a queen or king listening to this right now, and they're like, you know what, I've been avoiding the work, I've been staying busy, I've been drinking, partying, doing work, just doing everything but the work. What would you encourage them to do to start to open Pandora's box potentially, or start to unpack things? Like I use the analogy, you're driving a car with the handbrake on and it's starting to take that handbrake off. So there's less friction, there's less self-sabotage, there's less pain. What would you suggest to those people?
Such a good question. I feel like awareness is always the first thing, but the reason why you want to do it, because a lot of people want to do it for others, but I think do it for yourself, and finding out who that person you really want to become. And I think this is great because obviously your podcast is to support women and men building a business or being in the right mindset and to heal as well. But I find that if they're wanting to focus on healing and they don't know what that looks like and what the first step would be, it's actually really getting clear on who the person they want to be in that moment. Whether it's like, okay, I want to become the best, entrepreneur out there in the world. In order for me to do that, it's not just about the physical goals, the hustling job. It's actually, becoming so enlightened and so peaceful with themselves in order to do that. So I think reflecting on who they have to become, what that looks like, and then reverse engineering that. And this is where my strategy brain comes in. It's like, this is how you kind of do it. But finding the people that they resonate with, that they look up to, who is doing that kind of stuff. Because I find more and more, like the people you and I probably look up to, they're not just someone that wakes up every day and gets to work. I feel like if they want to make 7 figures, in order for them to do that, there's work that they have to do in order for them to get there internally. So I look up to people that are doing the work that I want to do. What are they doing when it comes to healing? And, what does that look like for me? Because I always work well with people who I want to aspire to be like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What do you do for your, so two-part question. One, because there's sometimes you do things one off and it really moves the needle a bit, whether it's cutting someone off, whether it's leaving a relationship, whether we go down the psychedelic route, that's something I've explored.
Uh-huh.
But I don't do that daily. But there's also then things that you do on a daily basis, whether it's journaling, meditation, visualization. I'm going back down the Joe Dispenza rabbit hole at the moment. So I'm very much into the meditation, visualization. Become the person and the emotion of the person in your future, and you'll manifest it. So could you let me know and our listeners know what are some of the things that you've done along the way, whether it's an event that you attended, a book that you read, a just an experience, some people use the term the ego death, if that's something you've experienced. So kind of some one-off things that really shifted the needle for you, but then also sort of day-to-day, week-to-week things that really worked for you.
Yeah. So I went through a really interesting spiritual journey, but it might not be very spiritual for some listening. And for me, it's probably the most woo-woo I've been. And
Yep.
during COVID, I went through a breakup and I was, in a studio apartment with two cats. And I was like, oh, I need to love myself again. And, I started with the Dr. Joe Dispenza, breaking the habit of being yourself. That
Great
blew
book.
my mind. And I wanted to obviously understand more the quantum world. So I went down that route a bit.
Yep.
And I still am so interested in it. And I do come back to it quite a lot because I'm very big on, manifestation. And some of the coaches and mentors I've worked with, including myself, like they do a lot of like NLP, matrix therapy, timeline therapy. And they're the things I've been trained in and I've learned and have had done on myself too.
Yep.
So I've gone through that route. And then I went through an interesting sort of route where I signed up to a mentorship and she was very into, I don't even know what it's called, but it was almost a very weird spiritual journey where the terminology is feel to heal. And I still kind of struggle with this concept now because that mentorship became something that wasn't aligned to me as a person in that time. Maybe it was the way she did it. Maybe the container wasn't as amazing as it was.
Yeah.
But I've learnt more in the NLP world where I actually get taken back to the first event when I first felt unworthy. And that for me makes more sense when you're obviously going down, the unconscious mind and asking it questions. And that for me makes more sense. But the feel to heal, I don't know if this is something you've come across, Lewis. I find that it can be really dangerous sometimes when people take you through this, I guess, journey of feeling to healing it, where they don't integrate the work so that you can then move into the future.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone's listening who can understand what I'm saying because
Yeah.
I'm still learning about this. But
So you're
there's
saying, sorry to cut in. So you're saying, my interpretation, I haven't heard the term feel to heal, but my version of what you just said is people kind of take you into your trauma, your wounds to feel it, to heal through it, but they don't process it. Is that right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. And this is just something that I've dabbled into. And for me, it wasn't aligned. And I felt like because of the processes weren't there and the integration weren't there, I felt that wasn't the best way to do the healing journey, but definitely more in the lines of quantum manifestation, meditation, breath work. I've gone through Reiki's and done stuff like that and experienced those types of things. But I've never been one, and I'm sorry if this triggers anyone, but I've gone through psychologists and therapy work, and for some reason they never understood me as a person. That's just
Yeah.
my journey.
Yeah.
But I definitely work in more of the holistic approach when it comes to healing. And that's what I've found really resonated with me as well, because it made sense to me. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Just to sort of summarize that for our listeners. So things like, I guess going down the self-development route, people like Joe Dispenza come to mind, NLP comes to mind. You went down a feel to heal, wasn't really your flavor, but I'm sure you got something out of it along the journey. You do things, you touched on a couple of the meditation, breath work. Can you just go through and give some examples for our listeners of things that you do on a daily basis, weekly basis? Like, do you meditate daily? Do you journal daily? Do you do breath work? Do you do ice baths? I'm a cold shower guy myself. What do you do on a daily, weekly basis to make sure you're continually to do the work?
Oh my goodness. You said ice bath, and I know for me that's just not me.
Yeah.
My partner does it all the time, and I want to love it, but for me, that's not for me.
Yeah.
But for me, my morning for me is I have these, they're called vibe boosters. And meditation, there's no such thing as one bad meditation or even just bad meditation. And there's times where I'll do 5 minutes or I'll do 20 minutes. But for me, meditation really is great for me because I'm such a, as you can already tell, type A personality. I get up, do the thing, have a list of things to do.
Let's go.
My day. Yeah. So for me, the 5 minute vibe boost is around, depending on like the theme of, I guess, my month or what I need to really tap into. So for me right now, it has been meditations around money mindset, attracting, the goals around that. And as well as that, I went into a phase of breath work and I loved it. I really, really love it. Where I'm at now, it's been like, how can I get the most out of my day where I'm doing every little part to get me there? So it's the minutes, the short meditation, the journaling. I haven't stopped journaling since I was a little girl.
Awesome.
And then I go and do some type of movement, and that's exercise, going for a walk, or even just, definitely doing weights or F45. I find like, because my mindset has been really focused on building a 7-figure business, I'm wanting to get like the quickest workout done so I can sort of begin my day. And that's basically my morning routine. Yeah. And throughout the day, if you want to know what my routine's like, I find, because I do have moments where a lot is going on, I do like to step outside and just get some sun and just clear like the energy I've been in. And I'm sure you know this as well, Lewis, like you're probably, on back-to-back calls, you're speaking to different clients, you're having meetings, you're shifting from one energy to another. And I find that sometimes, for me, I've learned I'm a very masculine person, and I love that because it's gotten me to where I am now. But I do need a sprinkle of feminine. And if I want to get into my creative flow, or if I want to tap into feminine energy because my partner wants me to make dinner for him at night, I have certain things that I do to sort of tap into that. And I've found that that has just changed the game for me, because I went through a phase where I had to be so much more feminine, and I felt that I was slowing down my day. But for me, I've just really claimed that I am a masculine person in business and what I do, and I just need a sprinkle of feminine to get me through that sort of energy system throughout the day.
Beautiful, beautiful answers. I'd like to just touch on, you mentioned the word masculine, and not that this is the topic, but my mind went that way, I've had some awesome guests on my podcast, and it's something that, having a beautiful queen for my partner as well, and it's a wound that she's healing through, and it's a wound that she's working on, and it's the wound around being too much, being too loud, I don't know, too much is the word that keeps coming to me. And I find that in a society, it's a lot of that is projected on women who are trying to kick ass, kick goals, do business, show up for themselves, step into their masculine, step into their sexuality. That's something my partner is very passionate about. And I'm curious if that's something that has shown up for you being on your journey, because you've just said it, you step into your masculine, you love speaking on stages, you're building business, you're kicking ass, you're kicking goals. Is that something that you've experienced, whether it's an internal thing, it's just your question yourself, or people have given you those stories? And if so, have you been able to work through it, or I guess, how are you working through that?
I love this question because it was such a theme for me last year. My partner and I, we went through this dynamic where whenever I'm too much I don't like to use the word too much in my masculine, but I find that when I'm in work mode or I'm in my masculine, and he's in his feminine, there's almost like this imbalance between ourselves. And we went through a bit of a phase together where there wasn't so much any issue with the masculine energy for myself. It was only brought up when I was in this beautiful relationship, because Jordan is the first man I've been with who is a healthy masculine man. But the problem
can you, before we go off that, can you quickly define healthy masculine and unhealthy masculine?
For me, I saw my dad as an unhealthy masculine, distorted, I like to say. So work driven, unemotionally available. He was narcissistic. And so for a while there, they were the type of men I used to think was normal, because that's all I kind of knew.
Yeah.
So Jordan was the first man that came into my life that wanted me to be his queen, and he's a feminine, emotional human being. And for a while there, my masculine felt triggered by it because it was, for me, I wasn't used to it. And so we nearly self-sabotaged the relationship because of that. And to answer back to your question, my masculine energy has only been questioned when that came into play, where I felt that I didn't realize I had to change my energy system, because when I used to attract the distorted masculine, I felt more feminine because they were in their sort of masculine energy that I liked. But what I've realized has made Jordan more masculine has made me become more feminine in the moment to support his masculine energy. And so that's where I found that there was a wound around my masculine energy because of my father,
Yeah.
in relationships. So I don't know if that sort of
Yeah.
supports.
Yep. Bang on. Bang on. It was a beautiful answer. I thought I had a feeling it would lean into that. Look, there's obviously a ton of mindset stuff with you, but I know you got the tactics too. So might dive into that. Might come back to the mindset stuff to wrap it up. Say I'm a coach, or not just coach. Do you work mainly with coaches? Is that kind of the people you attract?
Yeah,
Beautiful.
mainly.
So say you're a coach, fitness coach, wellness coach, yoga coach, mindset coach, whatever, relationship coach, and you've got a solid mindset. You're fired the fuck up. You don't give a fuck about people's opinions. You want to take action, but you don't know what the fuck to do. What would you tell these people?
I mean, look, this used to be me. So, I just want someone to tell me what to do. So I always begin with the business plan. I think it's so important. And so many people haven't done a business plan where they look at, why their business exists, what's the purpose of their business, what's their vision, mission, their why, and their values. And this has been a game changer. And I wish I did this when I started my fitness journey too, because I just kind of went in with what was in my brain and what I thought I had to do. But when you actually put pen to paper and create a business plan, you really get to understand more of you as a person as well. And that, your business is an entity. It's a version of you. And you understand, what really is at play and what your core beliefs are and your why and your purpose. One, it excites people. It gives people direction. And when I then work with people in that space, I know then after we do a business planning session, it's about understanding what their brand strategy is. And I love shit like that. For me, when it comes to branding and really getting clear on that, it begins to become building like the foundations of business. Why does your business exist? What does that bring from you? And for me, they're the golden nuggets that I get to then create, and then looking at their brand strategy. And then we go into marketing strategy, and then we go into content strategy, and then we go into social media strategy, and then we launch. So I feel like if you are starting out and you have no idea what to do, but you have the resilience and the determination and the discipline to do it, find someone that can support you with your business plan, because one, they then know their shit. And two, they're actually going to come back to what's really great for you, because when things are going wrong in your life and you can always look back on your why, that's because your business plan was started at a really beautiful place. And that's what's going to keep you moving forward, regardless of what's going on in your life.
Beautiful answer. If we could go, I'm speaking from experience here. When I first started, and from my understanding of business as well, in the startup phase, sales and marketing is one of the highest priorities. Because I find people that they focus a lot on systems and just things that aren't moving the money needle. But if you got no money coming in, you haven't got a fucking business. So it's, I guess for the people that I've worked with and I see struggle with, and me personally, when I first started, sales and marketing was my biggest pain point. If you could sprinkle some gold nuggets here for people of what they can do, either organically, because I would assume not majority, but probably majority of people won't have a lot of capital starting their first business. I certainly didn't. What would you tell people to start to get some first sales? So maybe how did you get your first sales, your first clients? And then what would you suggest to people who are fired up, they're willing to do the work, but their strategies are not there? They've got a basic business plan, but okay, I need some clients right now. I need to ring the cash register. What would you tell those people?
I just want to add, it's so good that you bring this up, because people are so scared to, focus on sales and marketing. And to me, that turns me on so much, because I love sales and marketing. But I always use the analogy of, every day, if you're going for a walk along the beach and you're going to get a coffee at your favorite coffee shop, your coffee shop man wouldn't just be opened Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which comes back to your shop front, which is, your business. And if you're selling online, I do believe selling daily is so important. It's depending on how you sell. And so my first step is understanding that your business is so important to sell every day. It's how you sell that's most important. One of my mentors, Daniel G, talks about that selling is a living organism, which means it's a constant thing. And so if you can start to focus on, if you guys are, is everyone listening in the online space, or is it just broad, Lewis?
I being a coach, I track coaches,
Yeah.
but a bit of all walks of life is my audience.
I always feel like if you can see sales as a relationship and you're merely wanting to build value and create connection and conversation, that to me is the first step. Because a lot of times when people begin with me, there is a bit of a fear around selling it, that they have to approach people, and maybe they've had a bad experience where, someone at Fitness First came along and someone tried to sell them a membership and they felt really forced. And so the first thing is intention behind the selling. Are you doing this for money, or are you doing this to actually help someone? That's the most important thing. And if you can I got this advice not long ago, but if you start to focus on 2 leads a week, by the end of the year, you can have 100 clients within just that 2 leads a week. And so I love having conversations on my Instagram. I love, seeing what people are wanting to see more on my social media. And I want to build a relationship with the people who are following me. That's my shop front, like I don't want to just ask people straight up, hey, do you want to buy my program? We want to build relationship and rapport and get them to trust you, because selling isn't just about the results that you provide. People buy because they see a similarity with you and they want to trust you. So you want to build trust with your audience, or whoever you're obviously talking to. And my next thing is just consistency. I'm a big believer that if you set your target for 2 leads a week, that you do anything it takes to get that 2 leads. So what that looks like might be creating a bit of a plan around selling with content strategy, or, just making sure you speak to 10 people a day. If you're afraid to ask for money, okay, how can you educate yourself on, learning the skill set on how to be a better salesperson, so you don't feel like you're forcing people to, give you the money. And so that's probably the biggest thing I really want to share. I could go down a rabbit hole for this because I'm so passionate about it, but I feel like it's the mindset and the intention, having a target, seeing your business as a shop front and selling every day, and selling in different ways. It doesn't mean you have to always be doing call to actions and pushing people down the throat. If you give people value and knowledge, they're going to start to see you more and more and start to trust in what you have to do. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Are you doing paid marketing now? Are you doing, obviously that was all organic at the start. Some people like are killing it off organic and don't need to. Are you doing paid at the moment?
I'm not. It's actually something me and my mentor were speaking about not long ago because of the event side of things.
Yeah.
But everything has been through organic for myself.
Awesome.
I can go down that rabbit hole for that too.
Yeah, like the thing for me, like I'm being a bit of a student. I'm getting a bit of a coaching session out of this, to be honest with you. So it's for me, I've always been good at organic. I'm a volume person. I'm like, if they say do 10, I'll do 100. I do 100 a day. That's for guys listening want to know my marketing strategy. I send 100 DMs a day on Instagram. I have a virtual assistant who does 100 as well. That's 200 a day, plus stories, podcasts, all that stuff. But I'm just trying to give people the arsenal to go, to give it a shot. What's working, what's worked for yourself, connecting with people, building relationships, building trust, consistency. So you said if you want to go down the rabbit hole, by all means, go down the rabbit hole, because if you get the sales and marketing right, for me anyways, you can always solve the problems. Because if it's a cultural problem, you can work on that, but and you can learn the books, whatever, etc. But if you can't actually ever generate consistent revenue, your business will never grow to the point where you can hire someone to fix the problem. So, for me, that's my belief, anyways, as a businessman, is just really taking the marketing and sales seriously, which obviously all the inner work ties to that, because it's how you show up, it's how you speak to them, it's your intention, and all that stuff comes into it. But yeah, it's been probably the theme of my life for the last 3 months. I'm doing a course at the moment on marketing and sales. So yeah, I'd love to hear from someone who's fucking killing it on what you would say to people getting started, or even people that are doing right now aren't really consistently getting the leads and sales they're after. What would you say to them? So yeah, please go down the rabbit hole.
I just want to say I love hearing that you do 100 DMs a day. Like, that is so good. And I had a mentor for a really long time who didn't believe in that. And I personally think people need to take more action when it comes to selling. And so people get excited about 2 leads and like, yay, I'm done. But there's always more you can do.
Yeah.
And I believe that, if you're hungry for success and you're hungry for making a certain amount of money a month or a week, then you need to find all different avenues on how to sell. And I love that you're doing, the organic marketing, you're DMing, you've got scripts, you've got leads, you've got the podcast, you're getting all the avenues. And my biggest thing as well, and I say to my clients, like, if you want to do paid advertising, you need to be good at selling before you get to that from an perspective,
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to nail that because I had someone like, just why is your business not running? I don't know how to run ads. If you can't make fucking sales without ads, you are fucked. What if Facebook changes their algorithm and you're screwed? So thank you. Just wanted to underline that point just for a little bit. But
I feel like when you get a sense for what people are asking and you can make sales organically, then what you can use later down the track for paid advertising. Like, people waste so much money and they can probably get, 1,000,000 leads, but then they end up, speaking to 1,000 people and maybe only sign up 100 people because, again, depending on obviously what your paid marketing strategy is. Excuse me, I've had too much Coke Zero. I keep burping. I definitely feel like people need to learn the skill set on how to sell in order for them to make more money. And then once they reach a certain goal, for sure, do paid advertising. But that's another route that I've heard, especially my partner's going through this because he's doing e-commerce. So he's learning a lot about paid advertising and in the e-commerce space. But Facebook is, excuse my French, fucked at the moment. So I just think, again, like, do sales courses, look to people who are really doing well in selling. Like, I have a sales mentor. I have 5 different mentors. And for me, it's like, what do I need to do to become a better coach and to be the CEO version of myself? And I feel like this too, Lewis. There's always new ways to sell. There's always new things to do in regards to that. There's no one script that works for everyone. What works for you, and find the framework that's aligned with you, and just get really clear on what you guys want to do. And that's my biggest rant there. I just feel like people shy away from sales because they're lazy. At the end of the day, I feel like people are really lazy these days, and people want to build this successful business, yet they don't realize the work that needs to go into it in order for us to have whatever we want in life. So,
do you have any, outside of what you've already said about building relationships, making sure your intention is to serve or to add value to help these people, what would be some of your sales? So obviously marketing, a little bit on sales. What would be some of your sales tips for people to improve their sales, convert better, show up better for their sales calls? What would you say?
my biggest lesson recently has been on the follow-up. So about 80% of people who sign up to you are made in 5 or more follow-ups in that client.
Yeah.
And especially if anyone's working with high ticket or, quite a large amount of money, I truly believe that a follow-up is most important. I understand that people have certain objections around, the external, the internal, and their vehicle. And I love challenging people when objections come up. But my biggest thing that I have learned is be patient, because you may get one call with that person and they may want to have a think about it. And I used to say to my clients, oh, if they think about it, that's just them trying to avoid, jumping in the sale. But I've actually learned now that if they want to think about it, you still have an opportunity there to follow up and have another call with them. And I've made sales more now to this day because of the follow-up sequence, without being too needy and too forceful and going down people's DMs, checking in on again. Hey, when are you free? When are you...
Hey.
hey, do you want to chat now?
Yeah.
And the other thing I've learned as well in selling is there's always going to be 2 types of clients. There's prospects. There's the defensive and the over embellish, which is someone who, at the start of a sales call, the other person's so excited that they're on a call with you. You get really excited because they're excited and you're thinking, fuck, I've got this sale. And then you come to the end of the call and you drop the price and they freak out and do absolutely everything possible to run away from that call. And what this has been something I've learned as well is objections handled throughout the call is so important. Being able to call out their objections throughout the whole call and speaking truth to them, but also having control. Because if you've got the defensive client or the over embellished clients, the defensive one is obviously there. They're like, all right, here's another person trying to sell to me. And it's being able to, lead. I always say lead and love. You lead with your masculine energy, but then you also show empathy and love in your feminine. So having control, learning about the follow-up, taking time and being present, because if you're thinking, fuck, what's my next question I'm going to ask this person, you're missing the point of what they're actually trying to say. And look for the clues of what they're not saying has been my biggest learning curve. You know, you can find all the clues in what they're not saying and look beyond that, because a lot of people will say things, but really there's more shit that they're actually not saying that you can bring out in that call. There's one more thing I wanted to add to that, because this is what I'm really passionate about. You know, there's obviously the rules of the 3 commitments and whatnot, but I've had successful sales calls that have happened in 10 minutes. I've had successful sales calls that have happened in 2 hours. Again, depending on what you guys are like, you want to obviously work on saving time for yourself, not being so consumed in a call. But I think taking away the emotions for yourself is really important, whether you close that person or not. There's always room for improvement, and there's always more people that you can obviously speak to. So that's, without going too much, that's
that's gold. Really, really cool. I learned a lot of my sales skills, obviously doing sales. I did over 2,000 closed sales in my fitness chapter of my life. So I learned a ton from doing the reps. But Kerwin Ray was one of my mentors during that chapter of my life. I did his mastermind for a couple of years, and he does the sales matrix, if you're familiar with that. And like, one of the rules of the sales matrix is intention over technique. It's just people will feel you before they hear you. Slow down for yellow lights. If there's any concerns, stop and overcome them. They're the objections. Because if you don't, and you just speed through yellow lights, which is what most people do, is that's going to be probably the thing that's going to be the reason why they don't continue with you at the end of it. So if issues show up during the call, overcome them. Don't avoid them. Don't avoid the tough questions. Tackle them there, because they're probably going to kill you later on. So plus he's got some other stuff.
I love him.
We haven't actually spoken too much about queen. Like the word queen, queendom, kings, empires, and I guess everything you stand for. I guess just go as broad as you want or as detailed as you want. What does that word mean to you? Why do you have it in your branding? What is a queen? What is a king? Yeah, just go wherever you want to go with that.
You know, it's funny because I had different themes for each part of my life, and I used to be known for, you know, slay and show up, because for me, my fitness business was really personing Beyonce for me. That was someone I really envisioned when it came to being that WBFF pro, and it was like slay and show up. Yeah. And then that sort of transitioned to like where I am now, where I really want people to feel the power, but also the resilience, the leadership when it comes to becoming a queen, because I truly believe that when you build an empire, you know, there is the highlight reel of having the money and the flashy cars and, you know, the world, you know, you get to travel the world. But I feel like a true queen, and I use queen because my mum was a queen, and she still is, because she went through hell. You know, we were on the streets when we were 12. I forgot to mention this in my story, but we were homeless, and that was a big thing for myself and my mum. And I just remember watching her always show up regardless through hardships. And when I used to think about my marketing and what I stand for and what I am as a person, you know, I became really good at showing up even when things were happening behind the scenes. And obviously, to my detriment, I had to obviously go through a lot of suppressed shit. But from a skill set from running a business and building an empire, you know, if you think about a queen, like an actual real life queen, she's a leader where she's constantly being tested by the world, where she has to lead and give love. You know, she's a warrior, yet she's also someone that, you know, deserves to be recognized for everything she's done. And so when people work with me, I want them to feel that they have, that every day they're sitting on a throne, and every decision they make is building their empire. And the more you focus on building that empire, you have to constantly be making decisions and taking action and being a leader, giving love, whilst also being a fucking fighter. And so that's why this has been such a big theme for me, because it's not just the glitz and glam, it's everything around it, beneath and through, that, you know, we get to experience in life. So yeah.
Beautiful rant. You can feel the passion come through when you speak about it. What I guess, what's the opposite of a queen?
Oof, that's a good question. And this could still be something that I need to work on, but I find people who live in victim and mediocre and use the excuse of life. Why is this happening to me? Not why is this happening for me? And I feel like it's everything that it's almost the version of themselves that they put on a facade as well. A lot of pretend, a lot of fakeness. That's what I feel like is the opposite of that.
What do they need to in quotes go through to make that transition?
Well, look, I went through this myself. There was a moment where I felt very unqueen like, you know, victim mentality, blamed the world, went through a dark time. And I think it was just taking ownership was my first thing, you know, it hit me in the fucking face. And it's basically just like owning your shit and, you know, taking responsibility and making a plan of action to change. You know, that was the first, that's the first thing that comes to my head, you know, own your shit and
Beautiful.
just work.
On that note, this is a question I always ask towards the end of the podcast before we wrap it up. What's something that you're working on that no one gets to see? And it can be business, but also personally and mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
Ooh, I'm going to be honest. I brought this up before. I don't think I've even spoken to anyone about this, but I haven't spoken to my father in a very long time. We actually had to have an AVO on him because it got very, very bad at one point. And forgiveness has been something coming up a lot lately. And I always wonder what's he's doing, what's he's getting up, like where is he? I don't even know. Yeah. So forgiveness, and looking for my father and working on building a relationship with him again, that's been on my mind. So that's the internal and personal stuff. It's actually quite personal. So you're welcome, everyone.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me in business, as I said, I've been stretching myself a lot this year, and I'm just leaning into more of that right now because people will say, and I spoke about this very passionately before, they want the 7-figure business, but with that comes a lot of groundwork and putting yourself in uncomfortable positions. And that's kind of like what I'm traversing through right now. Yeah. And with my partner and I, we're working on, you know, moving up to Queensland and buying a house together.
Yeah,
so that's basically what behind the scenes is coming up for us right now. We've got a couple of investment properties, but now we're like, we want to move into our dream home. So we're just creating a bit of a plan around that. And I don't know if anyone does this with their partner, and I encourage you guys to do this. We're very big on setting time aside to create goals for one another. But I definitely encourage you guys to do it because it makes it more exciting when you're doing it with someone else.
Absolutely. Every 3 months, personally, I get my team to do it, but I do it with my partner. We go through our purpose. Well, we start with values. What are our values? What's our purpose? What's our mission? What's our vision? And then we check in with where we're at. How can we support each other? How can we challenge each other to grow? So yeah, absolutely agree with what you just said. Very powerful for a relationship. Tamara, this has been awesome. Tons of value from the inner stuff to the practical business stuff to being absolute fucking queens. If someone wanted to connect with you, whether it's just to connect and say thank you, or is it to do some work and some services with you, where's the best place they can find you?
Oh, thanks, guys. My Instagram, I love to speak to my followers and anyone that obviously gets to be in proximity. So at Tamara, my coach. And also my podcast, Keys to the Queendom. Just dropping that in here, and you guys can find me there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a ton of value, heaps of gold nuggets, heaps of practical stuff. I really appreciate it. And for all the listeners, thank you for getting all the way to the end. Share this with a friend. Like, comment, subscribe. Go check out Tamara's stuff. Her content is fire. Tamara, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lewis. It's been a pleasure.